All right, good evening. This work session of the School Board of Osseo Area Schools is being held in the Forum Room of the Educational Service Center on Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. The work session is being audio recorded. The recording will be made available on the district website within 2 business days after the work session is ended. With regard to the audio recording, our communication staff has asked that we share a friendly reminder that side conversations during the work session are picked up by the recorder and can affect sound quality. Also, conversations during transitions between agenda items are on the recording as well. The intent of the school board work session is to allow for school board discussion of topics. Work sessions do not include an opportunity for audience members to address the board. To acknowledge attendance this evening, I'll ask that all present at the table state their name, starting with the person to the left.
Tanya Prince, school board member.
Keith Tate, school board member.
Anthony Patterns, Executive Director of Technology.
Erica Foster, school board member.
Brian Severson Hall, Executive Director of Community Engagement.
Kay Valella, executive director of community relations.
Steve Flisk, Assistant Superintendent for Elementary and Middle Schools.
Hikma Adams, student board rep.
Alia Dua, student board rep.
Amy Thomason, district level principal.
Naomi Cooper, student board rep.
Christian Vargas, student board rep.
Jill Connick, director of learning and achievement.
Brian Bass, Assistant Superintendent for High Schools, Equity and Achievement.
Yvonne Schwartz-Land, executive director of HR.
John Morstead, Executive Director, Finance and Operations.
Sarah Mitchell, school board member.
Amy Moore, general counsel. Kelsey Dawson, school board member. Kim Howell, superintendent.
And I, Thomas Brooks, school board member, am present. The purpose of school board work sessions is to build trust and teamwork, to exchange information, and when applicable, to provide direction in order to facilitate efficient and effective decision-making at regular board meetings. Dr. Hyatt, will you please share your check-in?
Sure, thank you. Vice Chair Brooks and Chair Prince and school board members, we're going to get going tonight because we have our wonderful scholars here to have a discussion with us around standards-based grading practices. So Dr. Bass, I'll let you introduce our speakers.
In an effort to turn it directly to students, I'm going to hop right over to district level principal Amy Thomason and get us started.
All right, great. Thank you very much for having us. School board members, we appreciate being here and always are excited to hear from a student perspective. So tonight we are talking about standards-based grading. And this is a topic that was shared and presented more information on by Dr. and team, I think, at the last work session. And so we are just extending that with sharing a little bit more from the student perspective. So we have 2 outcomes today for our time with you. The first one is to explain the student experience with this grading practice in their classes. And then the second one is to discuss ideas for improving standards-based grading so it works better for our scholars. So back in January on the 26th, we all came together and had our own little mini work session. So we actually listened to the podcast that was created, which was a summary of the previous board work session. And as students, we spent time listening to small chunks of that and then talking about the different topics that were in that. So part of it is just creating awareness as well as wanting to offer their own experiences. So from that, we kind of highlighted 4 different big areas. First of all, the purpose and what grades measure, then really look at standards-based grading practices. The students had just reflections on how this connected to their own experience, and then coming out of that had a few recommendations. So I'm gonna turn it over to our students. And before I do that, I just want to highlight 2 concepts. So you'll hear, and you may be familiar with these concepts, but 2 of these things you'll hear the students talk about, and one is formative assessments and summative assessments. So they're pretty familiar with the language and how they interact with their teachers and learning in the classroom. But when they're talking about formative assessments, that is something that might be used in a class period at the end of a lesson, a really short little, it could be like a little mini quiz that helps the teacher and the student understand their own knowledge on a specific topic. A summative assessment then is a longer, maybe a group of standards or a unit of study where at the end of that it's kind of a culmination of learning that summarizes what the students have learned throughout that unit. So those are some words that you might hear that we just wanted to make sure that we clarified. So I'm going to turn it over to our students.
Okay, so for what grades measure, I feel like we can all agree that grades are supposed to measure how much a student grows and learns throughout a course of a classroom, but we all agree that it kind of feels like grades are kind of measuring our effort or what we put into the classroom, which sometimes it can make us feel like when we get a bad grade that we're not smart enough or we can't handle the coursework.
Historically, grading was designed to sort students. With historically, things are changing really fast. In the past 20 years, social media, AI, there's just been so much, and still there's just so much of the old school system that has still remained. I've had experience where in some of my classes where if I get a bad grade or if I do bad, my teacher almost sees me as less, treats me as less, and can also like put me in situations that other students aren't, and that really bothers me.
Oh shit, I'm gonna have to read that part. Good thing I got my glasses. Empathy and flexibility. Overall summary, this is about students have a life outside of school, just like teachers have a life outside of work. Students notice that some teachers acknowledge that factor, but do not adjust to the deadlines. And we all understand that teachers prepare us for college, but not all of us go to college. So that preparation for some of us isn't necessary and is a barrier to our mental and well-being. And some students know that teachers work hard but don't want some of the flexibility. And then grading and support for every student learning at high levels, not just those who are fewer responsibilities and typical of school success. Overall, a lot of us outside of school are extra set of parents. We are workers, we are in sports and other activities. Some of us come to school at 6 in the morning and we're expected to stay awake the entire time. And then after that we go to work and then the day repeats all over again. So some of us are mentally exhausted to keep continuing that cycle, and then for some of us it's survival because we are the extra parent in our family sometimes. And most of the teachers, or some of them, do not acknowledge that. So a lot of the times why students can get bad grades is because they don't have the resources to get the good grades because they're always doing something else. But that's basically that part.
Okay, so we all agree that retakes are a good thing because retakes help give us a second chance to show our learning. And just like Naomi said, we all have responsibilities outside of school. We have clubs, we have sports. So retakes help give that flexibility as well. And also retakes can help make the summatives a little less stressful because they are 80% of our grade. So retakes can take that anxiousness away from us. And in general, like, life is about learning from our mistakes. So I feel like retakes can help, get that one.
And then we talked about consistent and aligned practices. So, like, from class to class, there are a lot of inconsistencies in grading in general. Like, some teachers will give zeros while others don't. Not all teachers allow retakes, and like Hikma said, we think retakes should be like an option for every class. And then just like overall, like the grading scales for each class are different. They're based on what the teacher wants. So we're like, and that makes it like really confusing for students. So our thought process was like for each subject, like all English classes, all science classes, all math classes will have the same grading scale, and it's not up to like teacher interpretation. Because then two people can be in the same math class, but if one teacher's grading scale is different, or like they grade on a curve and the other doesn't, then they would get different scores, and that doesn't really make sense. And it also of course we have the grades like on a scale of 4 for like GPA, but I know someone who got one question wrong on like a test with over 10 questions, and it brought her grade, like the grade for that test was a 2.75. Which doesn't really make sense if you're thinking of it as if like, if it was 10 questions, if it was 9 out of 10, that's a 90%, that's like at least a 3, that's not a 2.75, if that makes sense. So just like, really enforcing that all teachers of the same subject are grading in the same way. And of course it might be different with like APs and stuff, but then still all the APs can be on the same level. And then all the regulars and like everything. Yeah, this is just more on what I just said, but just like consistency within the department. And it is helpful to have like clear rubrics and syllabuses. I know some, like I've had teachers give me a syllabus, but it's like addressed on the first day and then never looked at again. So like if rubrics and the grading scales could be implemented in something like that, that would also be helpful. And then lastly, we said that extra credit feels unnecessary because there are retakes, and extra credit usually involves like a lot more work. And so the people who have like outside responsibilities won't be able to do that, and those are the people that the retakes are trying to help. So extra credit would just be boosting the kids who are already getting the top grades, which is like there's no point for it because of retakes.
That's what we basically what Olivia just talked about, support alignment between departments. Now we're not saying every department like English and math have to have the same grading scale, but that every teacher within said department should have the same grading scale so that it's consistent and so that students don't need to check with each and every individual teacher what their grading scale is. Because we shouldn't be expected to already have that information in our mind. That's it.
And for moving towards students taking retakes, if the goal of education in high school is for everybody to learn, like I think it's more beneficial that people take retakes and learn more versus just succeeding and failing. So honestly, if the goal is for us to learn more, retakes are 100% beneficial.
And then in addition to that, like what Christian said, if the goal is for every student to be as successful as they can be, then we were thinking of like reducing the number of formative assessments, or like making sure that formative assessments are necessary for the learning process, because right now it feels like a lot of formatives are just like busy work or daily stuff. And so like that's not super necessary to put into the grade book. I know I've had classes where there is daily work, but it's not necessarily in the grade book because it's not needed to do well on the summative or to learn all the content. So yeah, that's just what I do.
Yeah, and then lastly, we just know since students are busy with jobs and clubs after school, we just think that flexibility should be a little more given to students, especially with grades.
So are there any questions?
I have a question. Since you guys said 100% of you are for the retake, but what percentage of your classes, like, are you saying you like that that's offered, or you're suggesting that it would be offered more? Like, out of your school day, how many classes offer retakes within them?
I would say a majority of classes.
Majority.
There's like a select few that are heavy on the college don't do retakes, so you won't get one either. So
Okay,
I would
that's
just
less.
say, yeah, it's more that more teachers do that than less.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think we think it should be all teachers.
Yeah.
Especially because like, of course, like you said, people are gonna be like, oh, college doesn't get that, you don't get second chances in life, whatever. And I think if the goal of like high school is to prepare you for college or for whatever post-secondary plan you have, if the goal is to prepare you like for just life in general, then I think giving students grace is really important. And also, if a student does like poorly on the first test and then they ace the retake, if they learned the content, does it really matter when they learned it? You know, if they got like, if they understand it at the end, I feel like that's what matters most.
And what's usually the timeline? Is it kind of a standard, like a certain number of days, or is there flexibility with when you need to take the retake?
I would say it depends on the teacher. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, you got a week to learn the content, or they'll be like, whenever you're ready. So they'll give you the time. But obviously, it's not going to extend to the next trimester. So that's kind of most of the cutoffs.
Yeah.
Some teachers also do retake work, which I feel like it's fine, because then it helps you like understand the concepts more, as long as it's not like an insane amount. But
That's prep work to take the retake?
Yeah.
Like in order to take it, you have to do that?
Do you know if you get, I should know this, but do you get full credit for retakes?
yeah.
Okay.
Depends on the teacher too.
Really?
Well, I mean, some of the teachers will be like, oh, you get half a point taken off for the retake.
Wow.
Which I think is a bit interesting.
think there should be like a system in place that doesn't all like, I like the flexibility between like teachers deciding how they want to grade, but it almost feels kind of, well, no, it is inconsistent. And I haven't had like a traditional high school experience, but just hearing from that and from my own experience in a way, it's really inconsistent and it's not really that good.
Right, like as far as teachers can like adjust it based on what they think, or if like the whole class does poorly or something, they can like revisit it, reteach it, stuff like that. But just like in general, like overall, there should be a consistent grading scale, we think, just because it's less confusing, and also it helps to make sure that the grades are accurate, like an accurate reflection of what the student knows.
Does it differ between each high school on retake grading? Like, so each is, at your schools, it could be dropped an extra half a point, or?
For my school, they don't really drop retakes. Like, if you get a retake and you get the full score, you get the full score.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it is at Maple Grove too.
Our center, teacher-based. Like,
Teacher-based.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Because from what I know, every teacher is different. That's why I always have to ask. Which gets a bit tedious, but you just have to do what you have to do, unfortunately.
Is it teacher-based at the other schools at all, or just exactly the same?
No, everyone who offers retakes gives full credit. Not everyone offers it though.
That would be an interesting audit of who does offer it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said not everybody offers retakes?
Yeah.
Have any of you applied to college
Yeah.
or are planning to? Has this grading come up at all? Has it impacted your application process? Some of the feedback I had heard last year was that it's hard to compare with the weighted, once we get into the weighted conversation, like how that compares across the country. So just curious if you've had any feedback about that during your process.
I haven't had any for mine. I also think that, well, the colleges I applied to at least are looking at more than just, I feel like a lot of colleges now are looking more than just GPA or class rank. And they're also looking at like other factors that also equally contribute. So I haven't heard anything, but I don't know.
I haven't even.
I don't know. I'm going to a liberal arts school. I don't know if they care too much about grades. But I know the rest of the country goes by percentages. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 might be a bit different, transferring wise. Like, I don't know how it's going to be when I get graded in my other classes and they say, oh, you got a 75%. I don't know what that means. So I think for students transferring to college, they might be a bit confused because we've always done 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's good.
I mean, I guess you could just do 75% of 4 and then figure it out. But that's like annoying, you know?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it might be different.
That's
you know?
true.
They might be, 75, that's a C. Or 75, that's a B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your discussions about flexibility, did you have any kind of specific ideas about what flexibility would look like?
I think to make it work, it should go, in my mind, person by person basis, kind of like mental health. Because although everybody needs mental health, not everybody will speak up for themselves. And I feel like the students who need it the most will say something. And they'll be like, I have so many things going on this week, can I please just get an extension? Like, that, I think that will work. Because the students who need the extension will say it. Or teachers will just be like, hey, I'm a flexible teacher, I can help you with this, you just have to let me know. So like everybody can have access to it, and then it can just go by person basis, instead of like everybody gets the same needs, because everybody doesn't have the same needs.
I also think, like, to add on to that, if they're like, I know some people be like, oh, that's like unfairness conversations or whatever, treating students differently, which like really just treating them based on what their needs are. But even if it was like, if teachers, like, of course deadlines are still important and it's still like time management is still an important skill. So if teachers give deadlines and they're noticing that some students are like consistently missing them, even though like, you know, they are showing like they know the stuff and it seems like something else could be going on, I think having the teacher like really take initiative and reach out to that student, be like, hey, if you need anything, like, do you need some help on this? like you can like come in during this time and we can work on it together, or like if you need a few days extension, just like let me know. So like it might not be like whoever just asks for it can like get it, because then some people might, like some people who don't really like need it, I guess, might try to like abuse that. So yeah, I don't know, just like having the teacher really be more cognizant of that. Yeah.
So I have a take on that. I really agree with the person learning. I mean, that's what I've done. But when I think about it, how would that clash against the current school system, especially like the traditional high schools, you know? I think that's a great idea, but would that make the standard for certain grades kind of almost like it could be easier for some and harder for others? And I'm not against it. I'm just kind of trying to see how that would play out and work, but I don't know.
I would say not too much. As a student who needs extra help all the time, it would just be like time allotted outside the classroom space. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I take college Hmong, so I spend a lot of my time in the Hmong classroom outside of school, just to learn extra, if that makes sense. Because that's the extra help I need.
So, Christian, you had mentioned some negative experiences. From your perspective, is that rare or is it common? And have you felt that there's an outlet to share when there's when you've faced something that's not been helpful from a teacher?
I feel like it's been kind of common, not directly in like the ISD 279 like area, but definitely in other schools I've experienced that where I would not do so good on tests, or I wouldn't do so good, and I would get almost treated less. Like a lot of the better students would get to pick where they want to sit, or have more flexibility, or more stuff for the teacher. But for me, when I was struggling, not really. I wouldn't say I really had a lot of safe outlets to get that out, but that was years ago. I'm sure it's a lot different now, but any of you guys want to add on to that, that'd be nice.
Christian, was that in Osceola School District?
No. With the preparatory school.
Okay.
It's good clarification.
I have another question. This might be more of a Jill question. In terms of, because you guys have mentioned we don't necessarily grade the time factor, because I agree, work, you get a second chance. And so whoever said you don't get a second chance in the real world, that's silly. You do. You get many chances.
Yeah.
So I love that part of it, and that it's real life based. But I am curious how we reinforce some of those skills of like time management and self-determination in the process. And it sounds like even retakes, that's part of it. But I'm curious if there's been feedback or impact we've seen as kids have started to graduate out, and how this has impacted that part of learning.
So in terms of kids who've graduated and come back and give us feedback, I don't know that we have a lot of that information.
Or just studies.
Just studies.
Yeah.
I think the other piece is that there are still lots of ways where time management is reinforced by a retake is really there in case you need it. It's not the general practice that we want, that every student's going to say, oh, I'm just going to do this and do it in a retake. So then, I can't remember which one of you spoke to, the extra additional work that some teachers put in place to do that. So there is still those lessons, whether they're implicit or explicit from teachers, about the importance of time management, using a calendar. When we start using planners in kindergarten, first grade, writing down, and then really getting into it in middle school, and then with the addition of added classes and advisory, there are explicit lessons in both of those programs.
And I'm not saying retakes mean you have bad time management, because we've had to use those as well, so in our home.
Also, when I was from elementary through middle school, I went to a preparatory school as well, and they had like very strict deadlines. Like if it was late, it was a 0, like stuff like that. And for those years, I turned everything in like on time, like pushed myself, went above and beyond, and that impacted my mental health negatively. So then when I got to high school, I was relieved that it was a little bit more I know that I got a little bit more grace. But on time management stuff, I really haven't noticed a difference from when I was younger to now, just even with the different grading.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
I would say with the time management and Avid, I think it hits more the lower grades, like 9th and 10th, and they seem to be doing amazing. Like the Avid program is doing great. Wish it was around when I was in there. You know. I think the Avid program really works, and they got BAR and IB for all the rest of the other students. So I think they really honed in on like the planners and stuff. Yeah, it works out. I see it works out for them from what I've seen.
I don't have much else. I mean, I thought the point that you all made about extra credit was valid. I think one of the questions that I have, Naomi, I know you mentioned a lot of students kind of taking on that role of the second or third parent in the house, needing to bring in additional income, even if it's to support themselves, sports, clubs, all of the other things that life brings. The formative assignments, like, are you finding that students are motivated to complete those when it's so little of the grade, but it's so critical to success on the summative assignments?
I would say as a student who is in circles of other students who are like really high achievers, they'll just say, I'll do none of the formatives, I'll do all the summatives, because the summatives 80% of their grade. And if they get 4s on all the summatives, that means they're raising it, even if they have all their formatives missing. That's sometimes how it weighs out. And so some of these students who are really busy just find no need to do the formatives. And since there's so many and they pile up sometimes, you're just like, why do them? But I know it varies from student to student. For me, I kind of struggle. I'm like, oh my God, this teacher just assigned me 5 assignments, and then this teacher just assigned me 6. Y'all got me doing everything. I'll do them. I do them. That's the type of student I am, but I won't do them on time. So it ends up making me send them in missing because there's so many to do. And they kind of pile up.
Yeah. To add on to that, I think like formatives, like for some of my AP classes, formatives are only 10% of the grade, which is even less. So like they don't impact your grade as much, but they still impact it. And so like I'm not the biggest fan of formatives personally, but I'm also, I would say I'm a pretty good test taker, but then like also taking into account the people who are not, like who are anxious test takers, who really need those formatives to like boost their grade. So like originally I was like, nah, just like get rid of the formatives, make it 10%, like it doesn't affect you. But then that's also not fair to the people who may know the material and may know everything, and then the test comes and they just like freeze. So I feel like the ratio of 20/80 is pretty good, like right now in general, because yeah, I just feel like it's a good balance.
Just maybe
It's just the volume, is that what it is? The volume of
the
assignments?
volume of formatives, like a lot of them are just busy work. Like we do not need that many. I don't need like 80 formatives in one class. I think if the formatives could be narrowed down to like material that will actually like benefit us and like help us learn the content, because some of it it's like content adjacent, but that's not very helpful, I guess.
Yeah.
So like I do think formatives are still important. It's just hard to find the ones that matter with like in the sea of all the ones that don't really.
I agree. Just kind of building blocks up to the summative would be helpful instead of all the extra go do this work, go do that work.
And why would somebody do like 20 formatives and it only be like worth 20% of the grade? The volume is way too much when I can just not do that, save my energy, and do a summative. Like, they need to lower the amount of formatives or kind of fix that a little.
Well, and my worry there is that people will throw the baby out with the bathwater to some degree and not do formative, so they don't get those steps where they learn the material. And that's kind of the feedback I've heard is my kids don't do the formatives. They'll just do the summative. So then they just don't know how to do what they're doing. They just can wing it, basically, you know, kind of like some of your friends. They sound like really good test takers. But if you don't have those foundations, once you get to higher classes, it gets really challenging. Or, you know, SATs or college. And
I think if formatives were like, if the volume was decreased and like, for a lot of my formatives, there is time in class to do them. And so I think like time in class or even with the teacher to do it or to even start it is helpful. And like just for people to, you know, like getting started is always the hardest part, I feel like. So, and I also think if the volume decreased, then instead of having 20 missing assignments on my plate, I would have like 3, and that's a lot more doable. And I'll be learning like the same amount.
So how many do you have this week? Like just a slice of your life right now?
I don't know, I'd have to count.
Like on, that you have to do?
Oh, like today?
Not missing, yeah.
It's only 1% of your grade if you get it right or wrong.
Like how many assignments?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like how many do you have this
classes?
week? What's a normal
Well, you
life
don't
of a
have the app
student?
on your phone where you can see what's in your to-do.
You have 5.
In your
I'm
to-do
sure
container.
somewhere around that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to look at school.
Is there one per day almost?
Depends on the
Depends on the class.
Yeah, that's, so for me, like, that's the, well, and thank you to staff, like, the last couple of presentations have definitely informed me of standards-based grading, and I feel good about it, but the thing I struggle with most is that 20% for the formative. It does feel like a lot of busy work. As students, you're getting, maybe not you all, but some are getting all of the missing assignment alerts. Parents are sometimes getting a ton of missing assignment alerts, and it seems like it's not worth the effort sometimes because it's not worth much of their grades. So I struggle with if students are skipping the formatives, then they're not necessarily prepared for the summatives. If they're cramming for the summatives, are they just taking the summatives to get the grade, or are they actually learning and retaining that information? So, like, that's, I guess, conceptually, like, what I'm struggling with, but otherwise, thank you for the presentation, as always. It's always great to hear your stories and how it actually works in the classrooms.
What happens if you switch the percentages around a little, or does that not really work?
80-20, like
No.
80%,
Like 70-30?
Oh, like 60-40.
No, not
No, not 60-40.
Then you have to do them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right.
I think 80-20 is nice.
Well, I feel like what I've heard from you guys is that you want it to be quantity versus quality is, I think,
Yeah.
a consensus of what I heard.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's good feedback.
I'm sorry. So one of the things that we talked about, was that yesterday when we met, was really that alignment between the formatives and the summatives, so that they could really see that and see how that formative was quality to build to that summative assessment. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Really quickly before, this doesn't have to do with grading by any means, but as a student board rep, like having this time, I feel like I just need to address, like talk about something with all of you. So this is something I know that's on the minds of a lot of students and staff and just everyone here. So obviously right now ICE is in our community, like taking our peers, and there hasn't been a public statement from the district to address this. Especially at Maple Grove, I've noticed a really big divide between students with different political opinions. But ICE's actions are no longer a political issue, they're a moral issue. So like the Osseo Area Schools mission statement is, our mission is to inspire and prepare each and every scholar with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. So according to the statement that you all promised to uphold, the school board's job, in short, is to support and encourage every student to continue learning. And giving the option for online learning and sending vague messages about safety is helpful, but it's not enough. And like I talked to a few students and staff at Maple Grove about what they think could be done to increase the support and safety of students in the district. And some of this stuff may already be in place behind the scenes. It may already be like going on. I don't doubt that you guys are doing like what you can, but the students are not aware of that because there's been nothing to address it. Our parents get the emails from the district, we don't. So like a lot of us are in the dark right now, and it feels like there's nothing happening to support the students who are scared to come to school. So some things that some like feedback I received are missing students should receive support from the school instead of disciplinary action for like truancy or attendance. And then approaching students directly or sending out a district-wide message instead of waiting for students to come to you. Because if students don't feel safe or comfortable attending school, they probably don't feel comfortable asking for help with that either. So like sending messages directly to the students or parents of students who have been missing, seeing like what we can do to help. I don't know if the district is allowed to like organize a mutual aid thing for like not politically whatsoever, simply for students in our community and their families who are struggling right now. Because I know, and mutual aid, of course, it has to be like an underground type thing. But if it went through like a secure place in the district, I feel like that could also help with the people still at school, could help bring the community together and also give support to the people that are online. Also describing what the online option would look like, and encourage students to do what they need to in order to stay safe. Because a lot of students, like, they might want to do online, but nobody really knows what it entails. No one knows what it is. No one knows if we have to take different classes or if it'll mess up our schedule or how that will look. And then this, the last part, this one is a really big one. I think informing students and staff of ICE's rights entering schools and like the protocol we would follow if they enter the property without legal requirements, and just like our rights as students. And I understand that like teachers or parents, whatever, may take this as like a politically charged lesson, or like, oh, they're leaning to one side or the other, so like navigating that. But in my head, it wouldn't be a political lesson, it would just be like informative in the same way like we get taught about what to do if there's school shooters or if there's strangers in the building. Like it could even be a foundation lesson on this is what we do when a stranger enters the building. And like these are your rights in general. And I understand that it might be difficult to get approved, but I also think that the safety of the students is worth fighting for. So in order to uphold the mission statement that you all agreed to, please consider implementing these ideas or similar ones and put the safety of your students over the politics involved in protecting them. And then just my little speech, I just want to end it by reminding you guys of a quote by a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Desmond Tutu. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. So please just keep that in mind. And again, I'm sure there are things going on behind the scenes, but there's nothing that's been done to directly like address the students, and I think that's really important. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, like, you guys have my email. But yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one quick question. So one, thank you for the statement. I've seen your leadership in action at the school, and so thank you for that as well. One question I had, you mentioned that you acknowledge that there probably is a lot happening that students just aren't aware of. What's the best way to get a message to students?
Honestly, I'm not completely sure. There's a few different things, like, of course, yeah,
your social media. I know
Iowa
that's kind of
social media?
No, well, not your specific. I'm sorry. I know people actually look at the district social media. I know that sounds crazy, but like people repost that stuff. I look at it. That's just one idea besides an email.
Or even an email to the students, because students don't get the district emails, only parents do. So like an email, or like I don't know if setting up a mutual aid thing is even possible, if that's like legally allowed or whatever, but just, I don't know, in general, or even like the foundations lesson, like with what we do if strangers enter the building, adding on to that, like, or just like an announcement, an email, like anything to get the message out, making it required for teachers to say it in foundations, like honestly anything that will make, like, even if only like 50 students get the message, it'll spread. So it'll be like, at least we know something's going on. And like obviously, like you can't compromise the safety of the students who aren't at school or anything. So like, just like keeping it vague, like the district is actively working on it. Like, this is the online schooling, this is what it looks like, this is what resources that you can like use if you need help, these are things you can do to like donate, just like information like in an email to the students, to the parents, to both, like just in general. And social media. Yeah. If that's like allowed, I don't know.
I mean, I just thank you so much. I mean, this is exactly why we have student board reps. this is exactly why. And so thank you so much for saying that. And I know that, you know, our board collectively, we did pass a resolution really stating kind of the role that just exactly what you said, how it ties to our mission, and that education in public education, doesn't matter status, right? Everyone is safe and everyone is welcome. I think it was a huge miss. I mean, I'm even thinking of myself, you know, I know that we try to put a lot out to our families and parents, but it's our scholars, our students, that also need to know where we are and where we stand, about humanity and about people. And so thank you so much for making that statement.
Thank you guys for listening.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
Don't be sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Bass, on our cabinet on updated district operational plan.
Okay, will you drive?
I can't.
You can?
I'm not on the internet.
Okay, all right, give me a second.
Would you like me to, Brian?
Oh, sure, go for it. You go for it. Teamwork.
You don't have the actual slideshow. No, I'm just using. I'm gonna do this pretty.
Brian, I can do it. I got it online.
Thank you, Executive Director of Technology. All right, thank you, Dr. Howell. Good evening. Vice Chair Brooks, Chair Prince, members of the board and community members, tonight will be sharing the 2025-2026 operational plan for the school district. And then joining me this evening will be members of our cabinet. We'll be sharing strategies, process, and outcome measures that align to each of the strategic directions, and then within our respective divisions or areas of responsibility. So our two outcomes for tonight, the first one is to learn about the operational plan at a high level, and then number two, seeing the alignment between the work that we've prioritized and the strategic directions that you all have set for the district. So again, this should look very familiar, our strategic priorities for the year. This presentation actually reflects D1, which is to refine our district, department, and site operational plans to serve as a tool to monitor the impact of continuous improvement efforts on student achievement. So we're going to be providing updates in terms of the work that we're doing in each of the 4 strategic directions this evening. This should look familiar. In our vision card presentations, we shared the system strategy return on investment framework. And so we tweaked it just a little bit. The top line with the vision card said expected outcome. Here we shifted it to goals. So this past fall when the cabinet met, we talked about what process and what steps made the most sense in terms of how we think about our work. And we felt like goal was a better descriptor than expected outcome. So our goal is what we're trying to achieve. The strategy, the main actions we'll take to reach the expected outcome. The process measures, again, are what are the adult moves within the best practices that we're trying to implement, or the strategies that we're trying to implement? What are those things that if we do with fidelity will actually impact the desired outcome or the goal? And so the outcome measure is, so to what % did we achieve the goal that we're trying to have in this particular area? So just a quick review on that. And here we go, jumping straight to our first strategic direction, goal 1, which is to increase every student's sense of belonging, safety, and respect across all school environments, is our goal. And then the strategies here, Minnesota multi-tier systems and supports. That first bullet is to strengthen Tier 1 culture systems. So how are we looking at the systems that influence the culture and climate for our scholars in the building. And so we look at the social emotional learning curriculum that we have, and we also look at the positive behavior intervention and supports framework and models that we have in each of our building to consistently model and reinforce belonging. And so what's the process measure for that? Tier 1 fidelity checks. In our vision cards, we actually report out on the percent of the tiered fidelity for each of our sites. That is something that we report out on. And then you'll look at the outcome measure is that we want to increase our students reporting on our student stakeholder survey that they feel respected and included from 73% in 2025. We want to see that go up to 90%. We also want to decrease in students reporting feeling bullied or harassed by a peer in the last 30 days from 20% in 2025 to 15%. We want to continue to see that number go down. The second area in Minnesota MTSS is that we want to deepen those Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports so students feel seen and supported before challenges escalate. And so what that means is for students who we're not getting through their core classroom experience, we're not connecting with them and able to support them in ways that have them feeling connected. What are those additional things that we need to do as interventions to support them? So we have an intervention tracking system that we want to make sure that we're using consistently from school to school. Dr. Khan talked about our RTI stored. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. We also look at the coordinated professional development that happens between sites and our departments here at the district level, making sure that we have a narrow focus, that we're not all over the place, but that we have 2 to 3 big efforts that we're working on. So you'll hear AVID a lot at the secondary level. We know that our structured literacy work that we're doing and aligning our curriculum to the science of reading has been a huge push at the elementary level. And then we also look at the 100% of the sites complete the ETC cycle, and that's our last one there under strategies, continuous improvement magnifier, using the equity transformation cycle to identify and reduce the use of exclusionary practices, making sure that kids are in school. And then you'll see the other outcome measure there is that 100% of our sites participate in our May reflection, where they share about an equity challenge, what they learned through the equity transformation cycle, and they'll present the actions that they've taken in May for their presentations. So that's strategic direction A, goal 1.
Okay, strategic direction A, goal 2 is ensuring all school environments, physical and cultural, signal welcome, safety, and inclusion for every student and family. Strategies here focus within the Building a Better Future initiative. So the first area is designing and building environments that reflect student identities, culture, safety, and joy. How we're going to propose the process to measure that is through the meeting of all of our construction milestones and obviously remaining on target with our estimated costs or budgets. We've come to enjoy the term value engineering, which is what we do when things come in over budget, and we have to ultimately make some reductions in order to stay on budget. So typically when we start the process and go through design, we want a very open and collaborative process that's going to uncover everything that the building may want within that range of scope that we're focused on. And then once costs come in and we know what they are, we have to make decisions together to back off to say, okay, well, this is what we can actually afford to do. So everything's prioritized and we rank it so we can maintain that on target estimate. The outcome measure for this group is, for both of these, will be based through the community survey with the goal of 85% or more students and families satisfied with the school environments. The other strategy is aligning staffing, instructional resources, and transitions to ensure inclusive experiences in new or renovated spaces. So again, if you're thinking of new spaces that we're bringing on staff to be able to execute in those new spaces, and more importantly, as we're transitioning and renovating spaces, that we're creating the instructional resources, curriculum, and needs to be able to utilize those spaces to the best of the ability and provide for the students in the best ways possible. So with that on-time facility transition planning with both staffing and curriculum alignment is the process. And the final outcome measure, again, is 85% or more field on the survey that the bond dollars have been used responsibly.
All right, strategic direction B, goal 1, strengthen high-quality, rigorous core instruction. So all students experience rigorous learning with appropriate support. So again, Minnesota multi-tier systems and supports in the academic area, looking at implementing a coherent MTSS framework to ensure strong Tier 1 instruction and timely intervention, build leader capacity to observe, coach, and grow rigorous instructional practice through the Instructional Leadership Academy, and learning walkthroughs. So as you look at all of the process measures listed here, aligned to those 2 bullets. Our PLTs, the teacher teams in buildings, that those teams are happening, are occurring, and that they are documenting all their work in RTI stored. And then we have the second one there, accountability for Tier 1 effectiveness as measured in RTI. So I don't know if you all remember this from that previous presentation, but RTI is a new warehouse for data and intervention tracking. RTI works with districts to design and develop systematic processes for prevention and early intervention through the implementation of multi-tier systems and supports frameworks that allow our teachers to respond to instruction and respond to intervention using the most comprehensive data and documentation system. So that's what's happening in that one. And then the other 2 process measures are, we spoke last year about the partnership with the University of Minnesota with the Instructional Leadership Academy. This is where we're making sure all of our leaders receive foundational training around instructional leadership. And specifically, they're learning the practice of learning walkthroughs, where they're going in with colleagues to look at the current state of teaching and learning in classrooms, and being able to use learning walkthroughs to talk about that, and then begin to turn that work over to their instructional leadership teams, where teachers are actually going into classrooms of their peers and making public the practice of talking about teaching and learning and the impact of that on student achievement. And then the outcome measures that we hope will be influenced and impacted by this are that students in grades 2 through 10 who meet expected growth on A reading will increase from 40% to 43%. And then the second one is that aggressive growth at the 75th percentile from 12% in 2024-25 to 15% in 25-26. So growing the number of students who are in the 75th percentile for aggressive growth. The other strategy that we have listed there is making sure we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So the program improvement process identifies those content areas where we're doing curriculum review. And so you'll see we're doing that in math, social studies, health, the English language, learning, learner standards in our core classes. So strategic direction B, goal 1. All right, goal 2, college and career readiness pathways is our first strategy there. This is expanding our high value pathways, credentials, bilingual seals, internships, accelerated coursework, online options. So participation mirrors our district demographics. That is what we would identify in our process measure as secondary pathway participation data. So we have that in our vision card for Vision Card B. We share that data annually. The outcome measure that we would like to see is that we want to see increased credentialing, accelerated pathway achievement, and then we've actually disaggregated this by race and ethnicity to see increases in participation and achievement in those pathways for each of the student groups identified there. Then the continuous improvement magnifier for strategic direction B, we want to elevate the district behavioral specialist program to increase utilization and student outcomes. We want to strengthen American Indian education supports with a targeted focus on graduation and cultural relevance. And then the last one there is to align, this is Stevenson Hall, I probably should let you speak to this one.
Yeah, so some of the work here is like aligning all of our, we'll call it pre-K, this is really about 4-year-old pre-K versus birth to 3 pre-K. All of our systems to support kindergarten readiness and long-term academic success. So one of the things that happened this year already was because pre-K funding comes in at different ways, and it's overseen by different departments, right? So I have a portion of it, Learning Achievement has a portion of it, schools that different people have different portions of it. So lining up our TS Gold evaluation, kindergarten readiness, and then this year, I forget what month it was now, but for the PD Day, all of the 4-star teachers, all of the VPK teachers, everyone came together and received the same PD just for 4-year-old programming, right? So just kind of, it seems like an obvious one when I read it sometimes now, but just because of the way the different funding streams have come in over the years, this has been a nice one to tackle this year to make sure that there's some alignment and kids are getting, well, we're judging the same things or evaluating the same things, even though they, you know, some of the programs are all day, some of the programs are 2 hours, you know, so we just are trying to align all of those systems because they're not exactly the same. So yeah, thanks, Brian.
Absolutely. So the process measures for continuous improvement magnifier include the MDE child count data. So what is the MDE child count data? So that is the data that allows us in the area of special education to understand at the beginning of the school year, when we look a month into the school year, what is the federal setting? So of all of our students who are receiving specialized services, what federal settings do they fall into? And that allows us to direct resources to those settings and to those buildings that have higher concentrations of students within particular settings. So that's why we list that as a process measure. The other process measure is our licensed special education staff retention data. And then as we look at the American Indian Education, the strategy piece on graduation and cultural relevance, we have a process measure of improvement attendance milestones. And in a conversation with Ethan earlier, he spoke to that we want to see an increase of 10% in culturally relevant programming, that the programming that we offer out of our program, our American Indian Education program, that students are participating in a number of the culturally relevant programs that are offered weekly and monthly. And so we were seeing an increase in this until the last 3 to 4 weeks, but excited about that, looking at that data for process measures. Then we look at the outcome measures, and we see increased licensed special education staff retention from 90.2% to 92% this year, a decrease in students starting kindergarten and center-based programming from 12% to 8% of all kindergarten students on IEPs. And then the last one is to increase the American Indian student graduation rate from 68.6% to 75%.
All right, C. C, as you know, is very much focused on communication. We have one goal for strategic direction C, and that is to increase the awareness of Osseo Area Schools' identity, promise, and results among current and prospective families. This awareness is then converted into trust, satisfaction, and action. There's a few different strategies that we want to do to make that happen, all of which very much fall under our communication plan. We have so many different tools to get the word out, so we want to ensure our communication tools are used effectively at the district and at the school level, site level as well. So we do a lot of professional development on that and checking in on that. We also want to strategy-wise implement communication practices that center clarity, cultural responsiveness, and accessibility. Just making sure that we're being clear and we're sharing things that make sense, are supportive, and that people can get to them as well. Expanding multilingual supports and removing barriers to accessing them. And then our fourth strategy is strengthening the brand identity to help families easily recognize and trust district and school communications. A lot of these things that I mentioned have some digital components to them, so there's a lot of different data that we can gather and keep a close eye on how they're working. We're a lot of times taking a close look at those monthly to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. We're checking in, as I mentioned. We also have some rubrics and that we can compare it to. The National School Public Relations Association has a very thick set of things that we can be checking against to make sure that we're meeting best practices. And also, we can do some analysis, like some SWOT analysis, and just kind of seeing media-wise how we're being covered as well. And then in the outcome measure column, you'll see that we have some new metrics that we're going to be sharing with you soon. So we're taking an estimate on what we think might come back with some of our community survey results. And then the first goal for strategic direction D is to ensure clear and transparent enrollment-related information that converts awareness into action and reflects the district's care and concern. So very much what we're talking about here is an enrollment marketing plan which you've heard quite a bit about, right? Making sure that we're increasing student enrollment in all the different ways that we want to do that. And then we're also this year, right, implementing a robust communication plan for the attendance boundary change process that is coming into effect this fall. A similar and some different process measures. We can also do with the advertisements, specifically with the enrollment marketing plan. We get a lot of digital information and data that we can see if those are working or adjust them in any way, and see if we're getting some call to action happening with those as well. But again, similar like viewership and engagement stats, check-ins, analysis, and media coverage. And then our outcomes are very much focused on enrollment information. We have some new retention data that we're taking a look at. So we're trying to get to 90%. Our cohort a couple of years ago was 89.7, so we're trying to increase that a little bit. Making sure that our enrollment doesn't decrease compared to November 1 projections. And then very much with the boundary process, we want to make sure that students attend the school that they're assigned day one. We have a high expectation for that of 95%, and then 90% of our community will trust the district, and that again is going to come in with our community survey results. So that will be a new metric that we'll be able to utilize.
All
We're
right.
going to hand it off to Anthony.
Strategic Direction D, Goal 2, is to advance innovative, efficient, and sustainable operational systems that support safety, reliability, and long-term district success. Yvonne and I will go through the strategies we are currently focusing on. First are the 3-year operational plans, which are critical to the alignment across all departments. By requiring every department and site to submit a 3-year plan aligned to board priorities, we improve coordination, reduce surprises, and create more reliable and responsive district operations overall. This has an ultimate outcome measure through our community survey identifying improved operational reliability, responsiveness, and user satisfaction. Second, we are strengthening cybersecurity and data protection to ensure safe and dependable school operations. We track our progress through clear process measures such as incident response expectations, phishing readiness checks, and completed security and continuity plans, with outcomes focused on stronger security scores and community confidence that levy dollars are being used responsibly. Finally, we are exploring AI and emerging technologies with intention and caution. At this stage of focus, our focus is on the learning, building a shared understanding, strengthening data foundations, and developing internal capacity. Because we are still in this learning phase, future strategic steps and outcomes measures for AI will be defined once we are confident we are moving forward responsibly and in alignment with district values. I will hand it over to Yvonne for the additional ones.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you, Anthony. From an HR standpoint, our roll-up priorities into the district strategic priorities are supporting our mentorship programs. We've been more intentional this last year in terms of using data to help us target the sites that need more robust mentorship. So for instance, ESP mentors at certain sites based on turnover data. We will survey the mentees experience. We are developing survey for the site's feedback. That rolls into our retention data, and you all have the opportunity to meet our retention coordinator, Dilsea, and we will be back after we have an opportunity to look at our, take a deeper dive into our dashboard data with regard to a variety of retention programs. Of course, we've been working hard on being sure that we can offer competitive, equitable, and sustainable compensation packages from salaries to benefits. So that's involved collecting and evaluating market data, conducting equities reviews and studies, focus groups, surveying folks, and then implementing, making database decisions on that, which helps with hiring and retention. And we also have several Grow Your Own programs that helps with career pathway and development, and as well as retention. Our Grow Your Own programs are youth, special ed, adult, with a focus on obviously those individuals who need to transition to a licensed staff position. We are being, again, very intentional on, we're about halfway through a few different grants, a Grow Your Own grant. One of the things that we'll be able to share again towards the end of the year is the data on the increase in program participation rate and completion rates as well. And again, that will help us. We want to keep people in the district, so we may be able to transition some folks from being an ESP or in another role into licensed staff. I think I'm handing it over to Dr. Bass to wrap up.
We'd also wanted to share that ERS, the organization that we work with to help strengthen our work with the vision card articulation last year, the system strategy return on investment. We are working with one of their lead consultants, Dr. Charlotte Horton. She's working with us across the system around continuous improvement so we can go deeper and deeper with this work and mapping out our return on investment framework within each of our divisions across all the sites. So we're continuing to go deeper with that work in the system. So I wanted to share that as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. We try to keep it high level, but so there's a lot, as you can see, there's a lot of work across each of the strategic directions.
Thank you. Board members, any questions?
Can I just ask, should we do like one by one so we're not all over the place or no?
Sure.
I don't know, like how do you?
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, we can start with one. A1.
From day one?
I mean, so I guess I'll start with this one. I really only had maybe more of a comment than a question on this one. The decrease in students reporting feeling bullied or harassed by a peer in the last 30 days from 20% in 2025 to 15% in 2028. So I'm hoping that if we see a trend from 2025 to 2028, that says something. My concern with this outcome is that it's hard to determine, at least on the surface, if this is really due to a decrease in bullying in school or if this is a decrease in reporting. And so I guess just thinking ahead, I am fearful of celebrating a decrease of this number without the context of what's actually happening in our school sites. But again, maybe if there is a slow decrease from that 20% to 15%, and a consistent trend over those years, then maybe that kind of addresses that concern. So that was just the one thing that kind of stuck out to me on that one.
With that as an outcome measure, so there might be outcome measures selected, but I would assume that there's the triangulation of other data, not just that single data point too. So, but that, I think that might be one, just how do we have the full picture of the culture in addition to that one data point?
Yeah, part of the challenge is trying to give you a high level of some of the data measures, as opposed to giving you all of the data, right? Because we've heard feedback about giving you a lot of data, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to be cautious of that, but for sure we can share more.
Is there a way on, is there a way on student survey that we're creating that we can ask our babies what percentage of time are they reporting? Go back to the app and see, have they reported it? Do they use it? Maybe get some information on the amount of kids that are actually using it. I mean, we can give you the numbers of who's using it, but it would be nice to ask the students themselves.
Yeah, our high school sessions kick off here this month, and so safety is the number one scale that they're going to be giving us feedback on.
I just kind of related to, well, first of all, I'll just say overall, thank you for all. This is a lot of work, and like this is really, it's clear. It's very, very clear and so I just have some clarifying questions and just, just from our student school board reps, I think this is, every time we meet with them, I feel like it gets better and better, and I feel like they're becoming, I love just their voice. I'm so grateful. But one of the things that she said, Aaliyah, was about I guess I don't even know, like how do we communicate with students? Is that something that regularly happens? Like when there's a huge situation in our community that's impacting safety. And you know, we have a student here who's saying like nobody's talking to us, and of course, I mean, I know there's, and I appreciate she said there's a lot going on behind the scenes for sure, because there is so much. I'm just more curious of like, I love that we're doing those sessions, but do we communicate with them regularly if things are like happening? I know she had mentioned like foundations class, like that's an opportunity to just say, yeah, this is what happens if a stranger comes in our building, or this is what. So I guess I'm curious. It's like I feel like for myself, like it's a huge miss. Like I wasn't even thinking that. So that's really my question of when you think about belonging and safety and respect. I don't know. I thought she had I really appreciated what she said, and I was just curious about that piece.
You want to?
So we don't regularly, like from our district-wide messages, they go to parents, and you know, 99.5% of the cases. I know we've sent to students a time or two, but I'm trying to even think of like, what it was. I know like I've worked with principals. I think it was like the new ticketing system for maybe when it went electronic. Like I worked with a principal that wanted to notify students, right? And yeah, there has to be like it's definitely possible. They're in our system for like I'm thinking mass notification specifically, but I do know like I'm trying to think of like a good example, but I do know like Foundations has been used in the past to communicate certain messages to students. I'd have to do a little bit more research to like dig up on what I think that's probably a route used more than like emailing students. But I can't speak to exactly like what like principals would have the same capability of sending to students to grade levels. I've heard throughout the past that students aren't really checking their emails as well. So I mean, we basically, the only thing that we can send to students is emails, unless they're like in an activity now. I think with like there's an activities app that they can get some more like text-based or app-based communication. But email would be the only way that we can like directly, it would be their school like email. So.
The other method that we've used, because when we've done the student survey for technology, we'll push it out through Schoology announcements. So we can do that, which is a common way from a teaching and learning standpoint that we've mass messaged students in particular levels.
And it probably depends if it were high school versus middle school versus elementary.
Probably would be high school.
Yeah, it would be more high school.
We do, John, safety. They all go through safety protocols for that part. Yeah, it was just, the more, that's why I have this look on my face, because it was just more, it went to parents. I hear the parents would talk to the
I was just curious
kids,
when that was like an interesting point. Like I was like, I guess I didn't really think about it from that
I mean, I definitely don't read all of the district emails to the kids, so I can see how that would be a gap.
I like talking points.
I do know that Principal Becker got on the intercom or put out a message to students one day just acknowledging the environment and how difficult it can be for learning. But I can also see how maybe that's not like a consistent message or it's not happening across all sites. When kids are carrying this into the school every single day, if that one message is the only one that they've heard in the last couple of months, that could be a valid point that the message isn't getting to them.
So at the elementary, they do a closed circuit, there's a TV, radio, or TV stations, and they do a lot of communication there, but
but in
I don't think it would
secondary,
be anything like.
if they don't know, ICE can't come in the building. It was a big aha for me, right?
Me too. I was like, that's a good. It's nice to hear that. Like, or just to have the perspective. I like that.
Yeah.
I think even thinking about the school culture, so much of the students are seeing things on social media or amongst themselves. So how are we being intentional about sharing information with students so that they can have an accurate view of information about their school? So it opens up like a whole new conversation on a lot of things.
Any other questions on A1? before we jump to the next?
I do have one quick one. So, can you talk about the last outcome? I'm trying to understand how that's an outcome and not a process measure. I'm trying to understand like the impact there.
So, we debated this.
Okay. Okay.
And so I'll give you the high level summary of the conversation. So, obviously, we want everything that we like in this area to increase students' sense of safe, welcoming, inclusive spaces, as measured by a number of scales, right, on student stakeholder. And we believe that if we can routinize the use of the equity transformation cycle, that is a skill set we want our leaders to have, we want our leadership teams to have, and so we also want that to be an outcome, right? We also want that to be an impact. And so it can serve both as a process measure to impact, right, how we respond to that data and create stronger responses to when kids are reporting that there are threats to safety or welcoming or inclusiveness in their buildings. So we can absolutely see it as both.
Okay, okay.
But we're really trying to focus on the cycle and the knowledge and the skill and the capacity to really have our leaders and our leadership teams be comfortable with that. Is that helpful?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, to that point, how do we know what the equity challenge is? Like, is
They'll
it?
present and there'll be documentation that we'll collect on
But-
the process from each of the sites.
So all of the equity challenges are connected to belonging, safety, and respect?
No. Some of them are academic challenges and some are culture challenges. So it's both academic and cultural.
So is this the right outcome for A1 specifically?
It can be one of the outcomes, right? It's not the sole, right? So it'll give you some, right, data, but it won't be like if 70% of our schools chose a strategic a problem or practice or a challenge that falls into strategic direction A, then it would be, right? If it falls into B, then it wouldn't be. But I think we'll find more of what we're seeing so far has been A than B, strategic direction A than B.
All right, A2.
I had a question. So 85% or more feel that bond dollars have been used responsibly. I'm just trying to think of the last referendum vote. It wasn't 85% that. Are you?
No, so the reason we do that is because typically, and this happens, you'll find bond votes that tends to be a little tighter split. I want to say we were probably in the 55-56% pass range. But once people see what was done, the feedback changes pretty substantially.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at 85%. I'm going off like my old district, we did the same thing. We actually passed a big bond referendum by 11 votes. And when it was done and we opened it, the response rate was in the high 90s as to do we spend our money wisely.
Just trying to set you up for success.
Yep, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a question that's going to be on our community survey as well. So.
Okay.
The question I had on this one, so the first bullet point under strategy says design and build environments that reflect student identities, culture, safety, and joy, but the process measures seem to be heavily focused on construction in the actual buildings themselves. The outcome measure makes sense to me, but it's the process that isn't connecting for me. I'm not seeing the connection between the buildings themselves and student identities, culture, safety. I get that one, but enjoy. It just feels like something's missing between the strategy and the process. So I don't know if you have any initial thoughts on that, but that was kind of the question that I had.
Yeah, I guess probably one of the processes we didn't list there that would maybe spell out a little better was the design process, the user group, the multi-stage design process that we brought in for both staff, students, community, that we really didn't call it out in the process. So maybe that's an adjustment we need to make.
I think that'd be good, because you spend a lot of time getting that feedback, and it's such an important part.
For the new buildings, we spent over a year.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing.
Anything else? All right, B1.
So one thing I think about, like, with kind of some of these outcomes, and one thing that comes up, and just because it's like I work, but just like, how do we account for attendance? Like when kids are in the building, I mean, kids are not coming to school, then they're not able to really receive this rigorous discussion because of or instruction. There's becomes like a disconnect. And so how do we kind of address that, a population of students that maybe experience truancy in this goal, really, when we want to strengthen high quality, rigorous core instruction so all students experience rigorous learning with appropriate support. And you know, you look at a reading or all these things, but how do you kind of ensure that students who have barriers to attending school attendance, it's included in this? Or is it considered into this?
Yeah, so we have not identified metrics around attendance in this one. I just made note of it though, as we think about the vision card and what we populate this year about including attendance.
Yeah. Because at TNAC, you know, that's a lot of what they talked about there, like the connection between attendance, behavior, and academics. And I just think that's such an important, like, yeah, I mean, they just kind of all kind of go, they're connected and they go really hand in hand.
So Dr. Bass, with the Direction B Goal 2 as a measure process of eating at for attendance milestone, you think that should be moved over to B1 or?
I'm sorry, can you?
Well, it does have TNAC attendance on this one here. Just saying, do you think it should be more in
Goal 2.
B1 from Goal 2? B Goal 2?
I'm sorry, I have so many printouts here. Okay, all right.
And I just think like beyond even, I mean, I think for all of our
Overall,
students too,
yeah.
It's really important.
So just overall attendance. Yeah, I got you.
And then I was kind of curious of, and maybe I'm not on the right track, but you know, how does this kind of translate into our last presentation around standards-based grading? Like when you look at like the rigorous instructional practice. I'm a little older, you are. And just kind of, just what we were talking about here, you know, just kind of consistency in that way around whether it's retakes or formative and the quality of the work. Is that all part of, are they connected?
Yes. Do you want me to answer more after that?
Feel free.
So I think, right, when we think about high quality core instruction, there's the 4 components.
Yeah.
And really looking at both rigorous, which student agency and pedagogy of voice, but how are we making sure that the grading practices are consistently implemented, which is what I heard a lot of with students. So as I think about, you know, next steps, how are we helping leaders have those hard conversations maybe with teachers about beliefs or practices? Mm-hmm. So it's all connected. We don't necessarily have outcome measures on everyone. It doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to it and doing work around it. But if I put everything that we're doing on our operational plan into like 17 pages,
right.
So it is being attended to, and I don't know how to reflect that in the district operational plan in a meaningful way. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, yep. Mhm.
Did you want to say anything about the intervention tracking?
So the intervention tracking, can I talk about attendance too? Because
Sure,
I think
yeah.
that it ties back to strategic direction A as well, right? Like safe, welcoming, inclusive. When we think about social and emotional learning, that is where attendance interventions happen. So one of the things we have is our dropout prevention work, which is funded through Title IV funds, and looking at what are the reasons students aren't coming to school. And there's a lot of new interventions being put out since COVID about attendance. So working with our school social workers, our psychologists and counselors about getting that up and running for the spring and next fall. In the last 3 to 4 weeks have sort of changed our trajectory a little bit about doing what's immediate and then starting to plan for next fall. And intervention tracking, so we're tracking both social and emotional, attendance interventions, behavior interventions, and academic interventions in a systemic way, as opposed to maybe I do it on a spreadsheet, you do it on Post-it notes, someone else will do it on a sheet of paper. So how are we doing it in a systemic way that follows the student as they move throughout the system? So I don't have to call Dr. Bass in 4 years and say, hey, what did Jill Kine do when she was in 6th grade? So that intervention is there and that information is there for students and teachers and leaders.
I'm sorry, but I just, you kind of triggered something, but I do really worry about the impact that this immigration enforcement is having on our students, because even if every single agent pulled out tonight, the damage has completely been done. And it's been done to the same group of students that were impacted disproportionately by COVID. And I am gravely concerned because there's no money. That's the other difference, right? COVID had resources with it, and we're not going to have those resources anymore. And, I think that, and this is where it's the weight continues to be on our public education system, because, how do we focus on this when, families are getting evicted, when parents have been detained, when families don't have food on the table? What they brought up mutual aid, I don't know, it's hard to kind of even think of this, because those are the same students that were impacted from COVID, George Floyd, are also being impacted, right now. So, it's, even what's happening in the summer, to ensure that we're addressing that learning loss with no other resources is challenging. So.
The only thing that I'd add to that, and it's already been discussed, but regarding the rigorous learning with appropriate support, I know we don't want to add too much to this and we're trying to keep it high level, but if there are process measures or appropriate outcome measures that reflect the feedback that we got from our students today, I would like that to be included going forward. Just so that we don't lose sight of it, and so they know that their feedback was not only considered, but integrated. So yeah, something to take back if we can include something.
I have a question. We received an email about somebody offering us to go into the classroom and see. When you do these learning walkthroughs, is that ever a time where a board we could ever, if we're interested, participate in any of that?
We're looking at Katie.
I was just
We
curious.
had a couple of years ago had some conversation with union leadership about how we could partner with them to do classroom visits or walks, because we do the superintendent walks through,
Yep.
but I think there's hopefully some opportunity to do that differently.
That particular structure is not meant to be evaluative, right? So it's not, we're not going in there like you would be for a formal evaluation or a summative evaluation that we would do with teachers for tenure, if they're probationary, or if they're whatever, that structure. This is meant for us to really to get comfortable talking about teaching, right? So what practices are we using in classrooms? This year we're working on increasing student engagement and discussion, and so what are some of the things that we're looking at? So we're going to look at that. Critical reading strategies, what are some of the critical reading strategies we should see, and how are students applying those strategies? How are they, what are we seeing? So that's the purpose of those learning walkthroughs, is to really get a pulse on how are the instructional practices, like, to what extent are they there, and are they like being used in the way in which they were meant to be used, and what's the impact it's having on student learning.
Kelsey, is it around like board visits to come and see?
Yeah,
like,
I just thought, I mean,
reading.
Yeah, like
group
we're
or-
making,
Yeah.
you know, we're giving direction and decisions on things that, I mean, I'm not in the classroom every day. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm a parent, but I'm not, and I think it'd probably be valuable. And whatever that capacity looks like, maybe it's not learning walks, but.
That would be a problem.
So, you're next, but just wanted to acknowledge we are 15 minutes over, and I know the finance team is waiting. So yeah, we want to kind of speed through the rest of this.
My comments overall, I really appreciated the specific outcomes that you all gave. I thought that was really helpful, especially from like a community perspective. I think it's really helpful for us to know what you're specifically looking at as your metrics. And I thought this was just very clear and concise, and I appreciated the approach. So it's a very general comment, sorry. But specifically even like the A reading, like seeing how we're measuring some of those key indicators for our kids, and attendance would be another great one to add, I think. So I think this is just such a great move forward. I really appreciate what you guys did here.
Thank you. Thank you.
One thing I was wondering overall is we used to have the 3-year that said the work that's coming, the work that we're doing right now, and then like what's moved into sustained state, and that showed like the full breadth and weight on the system. Are we not doing that anymore? I found that one really valuable.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the Teamworks version of learning implementation and standard work showed us where these things were at in relationship to, is this a piloted, is this a thing that we're researching right now, or do we make the choice to actually, we piloted, it was successful, now we're going to implement it, and then we've been implementing it, and now it's a standard work. We felt like in terms of return on investment and what's happening in the next couple of years with budget and finance, that it's important for us to start looking at our strategies and our investments and saying which of these things are having like real impact. And so we felt like moving to this flow would give us that. Now we could still map this for multiple years. We would just hold off on the process and outcome measures.
Yeah.
And we would just list the strategies, and we could color code them so that it reflects right in the strategy section what's learning, what's implementation and standards. So we could integrate that and have that scale in here to like integrate the two.
No, I like the focus and the measures, but I also, it doesn't have to be all linked in like measures on everything, but I like to be able to see the weight on the system, because then it answers some of the questions where it's like, oh, like I thought we were doing this, or where's this? Like, so even if it's not like at a strict, like, I think it's good to have this narrowed in for like the strategies and the focus, but I think we also want to see the weight on the system of all kind of the stuff that's moving through.
Okay, I think we still have that version.
Just
yeah,
to,
I was
Before we
telling
convert it.
Brian, I'm like,
Yeah.
I think that's the way we started.
Yeah, we have that version too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's not incremental work, it's just more like that snapshot of,
Sure.
it doesn't have to be all linked to measures and outcomes and numbers. Yeah.
And Tanya, I think you already know this, and the board does too, but we each have our own departmental
Yeah.
plans too that link to this, so that's this is the overall district work, but that's to the weight too, right? We and you heard us all have different key areas that we help in this thing, but we also have, I don't know what you want to call it, spokes on the wheel that spoke out where here's the work we're doing in a specific direction or goal area that relates specifically to community ed or specifically Department of Educational Equity. So,
Which is one of the strategies highlighted in Direction P Goal 2.
right.
All right. So I don't have much else. I think on B2, I noted that I wanted to hear more about the strategies of supporting American Indian students. But I know we don't have to do that today and keep it high level.
Can I just say, I had that question too.
Yeah.
So maybe we can.
Want me to invite Ethan back and?
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Okay, next month, okay.
Yeah, that'd be great to.
I just had one quick question on B2. So the increased licensed special ed staff retention, I guess I'm not seeing a strategy that I see we're measuring it as an outcome, but I'm having trouble drawing back to any of these strategies that are listed here.
Now, we will be back to go through the retention. We're in the midst of gathering more data.
Okay.
And we've changed some of the measurement tools that we're using. So we did do a work session, and then we will come back after we've had another full year of data to do a deeper dive, because it's across several platforms. And then we're looking at the turnover data. We're breaking it down and disaggregating it into, by race and ethnicity, and also by position. So the goal was, after the last work session with the feedback as well, that we would be back towards the end of the school year, into the fiscal year, to be able to do that deeper dive.
The only other comment that I had was on the Grow Your Own. So I know you said you're coming back with more info, but it would be cool if we could get some like testimonials or hear from some staff that went through that program.
Yeah, that would be great.
So yeah, just
The
planting that bug.
participation rate is, and we'll bring the data on the participation rate. We didn't, the first, after the inception, we had very limited participation. And we knew that some of the work that needed to be done was just communicating the program more broadly and being able to answer questions for people. So yeah, I know NOSA would love that, so maybe we could make that all part of the same package. It's all under that portfolio. So yeah, thank you.
And would that'd be great. And also, would that include the mentorship programs, like the Teacher of Color mentorship program? And don't we have a new teacher mentor program too?
We do. We have a few different mentorship programs, and I would certainly talk with, want to know what you'd want to hear from, because we probably couldn't do the Grow Your Own and the teacher mentorship programs, or the mentorship programs in one. We have TOC, Teachers of Color. We have new teacher mentors. We have ESP mentors. And so those are different programs. And then the Grow Your Own, we have multiple programs as well.
How are those mentorship programs funded? Are they through the state or?
The mentorship programs are funded, they're grant funded, and there's different grants that provide the funding. And then, I'm sorry, we also do stipends for the mentorship programs too, so but all grant funded and district funded.
I'll reserve my questions for a later date.
Thank you.
Thomas is making
You
me
get the
stop.
look?
Yeah, I got the look. You got the look. He's like, wrap it up.
All right, Dr. Bass, next steps. When should we hear more? Ish.
So when we come back to present vision cards, we have C&D coming up this spring.
C&D is in April.
Yep. So we'll be back to share C&D, and then in June, A and B. So
Correct.
some of those additional pieces that you all asked about today, we'll make sure that those are reflected in the data that we bring for those presentations.
All right.
Is that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's okay, go ahead.
Ready?
Okay. We're going to go ahead and have our next presentation. Coming in, Mike and Kelly, long-range financial planning budget update.
Good evening. So this evening's conversation around our fiscal year 2027 budget, which we have divided into three different parts. The first part is just a general overview of the budgeting process, review of our budget adjustment proposals that are being brought forward for consideration, and then capital budget requests. So I believe everybody has seen the first few processes, so I'm going to go fairly quickly through them. So the first page is our long-range financial planning model that the district uses, which has two purposes: a solid data-driven and collaborative budgeting process, as well as a comprehensive financial projection tool. A few quick things to point out. On the diagram, the mission is at the center. This is especially important as we make proposals and how we allocate our limited resources as a system. We need to stay focused on the mission. The gray ovals around the mission represent the work of the staff, particularly budget managers, and what they do throughout the year to develop budget proposals. based on strategic priorities of the district and guidance of the school board. The teal boxes on the outside represent the school board's role in the process. Tonight, we're preparing for the work that you will see in the box on the left side of the diagram, specifically for the board to approve budget adjustments that are being brought forward and have gone through the extensive LRFP process. The final item to highlight is the box on the top right-hand side, which are the guiding principles for the LRFP process. The next page is an overview of our budget adjustment process and how these requests come forward. As we stated earlier, all budget requests that come forward should align and support the district's mission and strategic directions. Each proposal, as you'll see under number 6 on this page, needs to be proposed and evaluated using the PAIR process, or Program Efficiency, Abandonment, and Redirection. This ensures that there is an intentional process for evaluating the impact of a proposed budget adjustment. Also, based on guidance from the school board back in November, all budget requests should have a cost-neutral effect, meaning any proposed increase in the budget capacity in an area should have an offsetting budget reduction in another area, based on an extensive prioritization process by each budget manager. The exception to this requirement, which was introduced a number of years ago into the budgeting process, is an element called the strategic investment. This is a proposal that does not have a budget reduction offset, but because of the potential impact of the request on the mission and strategic direction, the board would be asked to consider using fund balance to fund the request. Today, we're not bringing forward any strategic investments for FY27 based on financial projections and maintaining our minimum fund balance policy in the future years. The last item I'll draw attention to is number 7, which highlights the fact that these budget requests have, on January 26th, gone through our LRFP advisory group, which includes some community members for feedback and evaluation. And we'll go through some of that feedback at the regular business meeting on February 24th. The next page is the annual timeline of the budgeting process. Our process starts in April every year in our pre-planning phase and ends in June of the next year with the school board approval of the budget. So you can see multiple touch points of various staff and stakeholder groups, which demonstrate the collaborative nature of the process. You'll also notice that the school board has 9 different touch points throughout the budgeting process, both to keep you informed as well as to ensure opportunities for you to give direction and make decisions. The document highlights the key dates in the budget process, and again, those items in blue are where the board takes action. I will turn it to Kelly Benusa, Director of Business Services, to walk through some of the financial information related to the budget process.
So the next document we're going to look at is the fiscal year 26 adopted expenditure budget for all of our budgeted funds. So long-range financial planning has been around for more than 10 years, utilizing this process as it was designed. We utilize it for all of our budgeted funds with the exception of our debt service fund, which is shown in the orange piece of the chart. The chart then shows the size of our funds in relation to each other. So we have $442.5 million that was budgeted for at the beginning of fiscal year 26, and that does not include our grants, such as like compensatory, Title I, Achievement Integration, or any of our ESSER funds. We bring those budgets to the board monthly as grants are approved through the granting entity, which could either be the federal or the state or the local sources. The next document on page 37 of your packets is the estimated cost structure. Again, just to quickly orient everyone to the spreadsheet. At the top of the spreadsheet are the big broad categories of salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, and other for fiscal year 26. To that, we apply a 3% factor, and then we start to fill in this document as we have information that becomes unique to us. So again, that planning assumption is 3% for fiscal year 27 general fund projected expenditure budget, and again, that's the starting point for all of our expenditures. And we utilize prior year trend in completing this document as well. So for fiscal year 27, as we've been filling in that document, at this point in time, we have identified 2.45% of that 3% increase for next year, which is higher than it has been in previous years. For instance, last year we were only 1.77% this time. So if we go to the next document, this is our general fund 5-year financial projection. And again, this projection is a high-level board organizer for a financial forecast. There are 3 sections to this projection. The top section shows the revenue, expenditures, differences, fund balance, and then fund balance percentage for that 7-year window, which begins in fiscal years 24 and 25, and the adopted budget for fiscal year 26, which is our 10th year, and then projects out for fiscal years 27 to fiscal year 2030. So there are $2 million in operational adjustments under this chart, and those adjustments are projected to start in fiscal year 29. The assumption section then shows the revenue expenditure assumptions being used for those same years. We have a revenue increase based on our legislative changes. So the revenue is going to fluctuate between 2 and 3% increase on the general or basic formula allowance. And those estimates are provided by MDE for those future years. Again, the expenditures are projected to increase 3%, which is consistent with our prior year tactics and isn't being changed at this time. Therefore, if we exceed those 3% in costs, we'll be outside those parameters and we'll be deficit spending at a greater rate than what is on this projection. And the middle section shows the budget projection for both revenues, which are in blue, and expenditures in red. And then those trend lines show the same colors of the general trajectory for each of those items. So as you can see in that document, the expenditures are projected to outpace our revenues beginning in fiscal year 26 by 19.7 million. And then the final section looks again at the fund balance projection for that same time period. The green bars represent our actual and projected fund balances for each of those years. And then the orange bar shows the minimum required fund balance of 5% as set in board policy. Again, the trend lines show the trajectory of the fund balance related to the minimum. And then as you can see, the fund balance is projected to start to decline in the current year. So all of the requests that are being reviewed this evening, as well as the expenditure tactics, are included in this financial projection. Again, we want to caution the board that the funding cliff that we talk about in education is projected for fiscal years 2031, and we'll likely need to address that shortfall earlier, so that we can have that softer financial landing to a 5% minimum fund balance. So fiscal year 2031 will be added to this projection document in the spring of 2026. And with that, I'll turn it back to John.
Thank you. As mentioned earlier, each budget adjustment proposal needs to go through the PAIR process to ensure consistency in the evaluation process. Pages 40 and 41 of the board packet, you'll see a blank version of this document that we have the budget managers complete. Included are questions about the intended impact of the proposal, how the proposal aligns with the strategic plan, how the proposal aligns with our equity work, how the budget manager is going to measure the effectiveness of the proposal, what impacts the proposal may have on other departments, and what legal or school board policies may be affected by the proposal. Once this is complete, the PAIR goes through the evaluation within the original department, then through all of the district's budget managers, and finally through the LRFP advisory team. At any point during that evaluation period, budget managers can adjust their requests based on feedback from these groups. Moving on, you will see a summary of all the budget requests. The first section represents the recommendations for the general fund broken down by instructional and non-instructional categories. The next section includes expenditure tactics. Also to provide flexibility for increased enrollment next year, and again to ensure that we can provide the same level of services. We have a proposal for a staffing contingency that will only be allocated if enrollment warrants it. And starting on page 43, you'll see a line-by-line list of the proposals, including the summary as provided by the budget manager. For next year, all of our proposals in this round come from the Department of Leadership, Teaching, and Learning, and net to a $0 overall impact. I'll go through the list here briefly. In the area of educational equity, reduce 0.355 FTE multilingual community and communication specialists, which will move to grant funded. Add 2.0 FTE early childhood English learner teachers. Add 3.72 FTE English learner staff development assessment specialist teachers. Combined line item for both of those is about $475,000. Add budget capacity to continue core English learner program activities for $242,000. Add 1.8 FTE teachers and 0.2 FTE staff development assessment specialist teacher for native language revitalization program. In the area of learning and achievement, that's the elimination of 2 positions, starting with 1.635 FTE data and assessment coordinators and the subsequent 0.365 FTE, which is grant funded. And then with that, the addition of 1.0 FTE data science coordinator and casual salary budget capacity. Those both net to 0. In the PK-12 operations area, reduce 8.48 FTE teachers for the 279 online staffing contingency, approximately $895,000 savings. Eliminate 0.232 FTE OSSEO administrative professional. Add 0.48 FTE teacher for Aspen Ridge staffing allocation. And in student services, reduce 1.0 FTE special education building coordinator, which will move to a grant-funded position. And with this special ed reimbursement, this actually a savings of about $31,000. On page 44, you'll see the color-coded results of the feedback from our LRFP advisory team, which includes members of the community. Green represents positive or neutral feedback, yellow represents areas of concern, and red represents the perspective that the proposal may have a negative impact. Proposals are evaluated this year were primarily seen as positive or neutral with a few areas of concern, and the one red is very specific as to why that came out. Specific feedback was given to each budget manager at the conclusion of the LRP advisory meeting, and they, again, that had opportunities to make adjustments as needed to what was presented here. So that completes the review of the budget adjustment process, and now we're going to turn our attention to the capital budget review, and I'll have Kelly walk us through the projection.
So we go to page 45 in your package. This is the capital fund 5-year projection, and again, we use a zero-based budget approach, meaning that wherever expenditures are requested, the dollar amount, there has to be a request completed for that item. The top section again shows our operational adjustments under the chart, and the line highlights adding expenditures of $400,000 for fiscal year 29, and an additional $800,000 in fiscal year 2030, for a total of $1.2 million, which is listed on the right. And then the assumption section shows the revenue and expenditures assumptions being held at 0 for 2027 through 2030. And then the next section shows the budget projections for revenues in blue and expenditures in red as planned. Expenditures are projected to both pace or revenues. And then in that final section, we look at the fund balance projection for that same time period. And the green bars represent our actual and projected fund balances for each of those years. And then the orange bars show minimum required fund balance of 10% for this fund. And again, those timelines show the annual fund balances for the lowest to minimum. And as you can see, we're managing this fund to maintain that minimum fund balance of 10%. Also included in this projection is the projected special assessment for Aspen Ridge.
Okay, so just like our LRFP budget adjustment proposals, you'll see the capital request proposals categorized by each division starting on page 47. And I'm just going to kind of summarize rather than going through all of them. So community engagement at just over $81,000 is really the addition of a few pieces of equipment and primarily replacement of either devices such as AVE student laptops or an envelope stuffer, things that the communications and community engagement teams just need to replace. In the division of leadership, teaching, and learning, $3.3 million. This is primarily expenditures that we see on an annual basis, so replacing sports uniforms that are on cycles, purchase of instructional and core curriculum materials, maintaining. Fortunately, each of our divisions do a really good job of having a little bit of contingency for some of their programs, so if something comes up, they have a fund to go to with that. But what you're seeing down this list is primarily the normal every year list of items that we see, with the exception being some money set aside for specialty furniture and equipment for Aspen Ridge Elementary, depending on the need as we actually get the building up and running. In the human and administrative resource team division, HART, just under $6.5 million. The biggest one is the maintenance of all lease commitments for instructional spaces, athletic facilities, flex rooms, equipment, and Northwest Family Services Center. Contingencies for equipment, special assessments, and so on. purchase of capital equipment for new elementary and the interior and exterior maintenance for other new additions at other buildings, replace grounds and maintenance and custodial equipment. Instructional and informational technology team, I2T2, they actually have an offset. So the items that they replace are offset in the capital budget with E-rate revenue. And then as we move to the capital projects, tech levy specifically, which is 14.3 million or so, about 2.1 million falls within the Heart Division for security and emergency management, where they are maintaining and replacing camera systems, software licenses, visitor management systems, store intrusion, radios, and have a contingency. And the majority of it at 12.23 million is I2T2's staff and maintaining all of our services and systems for technology, the existing technology leases, digital displays, purchase and install of wireless displays in the new classrooms, in the new wings and the new schools themselves, and replacement of their normal student and staff mobile devices on the schedules. So the next steps in the budget process include bringing forward the FY27 budget adjustments and the FY27 capital budget to the board for approval at the February 24th board meeting. And with that, I will turn it back to Vice Chair Brooks for any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, however, as we see the new shift to deficit spending become realized this year, I think that we're going to need to have some real conversations about the pace of this deficit spending. I think that if in 5 years we're down from where we are today in our fund balance to 5.1%, I think our stakeholders would find that fiscally irresponsible for us to do. So I think we may need to have some more long-range discussion and planning and thinking and parameters for if that's really the pace that we want to go at. I'd also, I know we've seen the numbers over the years, but it would be helpful if on the 5-year financial projection, if we could go back and get a historical view. From time to time, I know we look at that and maybe look at the last 10 years and see, like, I know we always talk about what actually gets realized, do we get more funding than we expect, just so that we can begin to be prudent as this flip is actually realized for maybe what feels like the first time in our history, or in our recent history of flipping into that significant deficit spending. So just a thought as we look ahead.
And just so you know, for reference, the audit report that was submitted in November contains, the back of that contains a statistical section that has 10-year running summaries of all those pieces of information. So I think it's updated every year.
Yep.
Do you want that sent out to you all, or do you want?
I can look at that, or I don't know if others want it sent.
Yeah.
We can send it if you want.
Oh, it's nice to have it fresh.
Okay.
Can I ask one? It is kind of a ticky-tacky question, so if it's not for tonight, that's understandable. The commencement, the high school commencement cost, is that on par with what we've paid previous years?
Nope.
How much of an increase is it?
Emily may have to help me with that. I believe we're going from, call it 35,000 to 120,000?
Yep,
That close?
that's close.
Okay. Yeah, so our hands were very tied this year, and one of the big curveballs is this used to always be a lease levy, so it would go into our building lease side, and that is no longer, there was a change in interpretation at MDE, so that is no longer allowed, and this is the first year we're realizing that. And then on top of that, or is it the second? I don't remember. And then on top of that, the sudden change in the fall from what the University of Minnesota did to close Mariucci from any of those things. So I am aware of a proposed piece of legislation that will come up this year that will potentially reinstate graduation and the ability to put that in the lease levy, which would again help our teaching and learning team to not have to take that $100 and some thousand off. And they will explore opportunities for other venues if they fit, but really it comes down to, you know, they whittled down some of our best choices, so we really have to look at what we have and make decisions.
I would say, just as feedback from community again, is that is a very steep cost, and I understand we were under a lot of pressure to find a new place. I think it'd be concerning if we kept it that high.
Oh, no, they won't.
Just gotta say.
This is a lucky graduating class.
Yeah, they're fancy. Thank you.
Anything else?
What was with the reduction of the online staffing, was that because of the elementary?
The 8.48, it was a contingency, so it was staffing allocation that we had sitting there in case enrollment went higher, and so we could be able to react. And we've been kind of watching it over the last number of years, and actually it was higher, I believe, and we've kind of slowly whittled at it, but kind of gotten to the point that we could remove the contingency and the needs existed elsewhere. And so trying to, rather than sitting on contingency that we not used for multiple years, made more sense, and I believe a lot of that went to really support the multilingual learner programs, so making sure that those are sustained.
Vice Chair Brooks, you've done it again.
Thank
You
you.
got us on schedule. I'm gonna wrap it up in 5. So, for the school year calendar, we'll get this updated out from Sherry because there were some add-ons from this evening. In March, we were going to have what's our presenter, our Somali presenter that's helping out Osseo Senior?
Oh, Saeed Ali.
Yeah, so just because of the current events that's happening, he will not be coming here, but I will be sending out an update in March on his work over at Osseo Senior High School. He's been working with the parents there and kind of understanding parent needs and needs parents have from our school district as well. In April, I did have a question for you. So we did have listed there a standard-based grading update. What are the next steps that the board, you don't have to give me the answer today, you can send it to me. What are the next steps that the board wants with standard-based grading? Do you want us to keep going further? Do you want us to go to teachers? Do you want us to go to principals? We can follow through with what our scholars said in regards to inconsistency. I know Jill took massive notes over there with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll give it now. The only things I see are the inconsistency
Okay.
and then the percentages of how, like, reevaluate that, how the grade is split.
Okay.
Those were the 2 pinch points I heard.
Okay.
So we can take that off.
Okay, all right, and then we were going for March to add on, again, some more information, Indian Ed, what your vision is and what's working there. And then we can add on, in one of the months, grow your own program, and then we'll have room to add on mentor programs as well. Erica, we do have data that's coming in for technology use in May as well, and extracurricular activities, and I believe you asked as well. So, and we had listed here vision card B and E, but vision cards will be A and B in June. And so we'll get all this updated and sent out to you.
Thank you. All right. Meeting's adjourned at 8:03.